Hi, welcome back to the Latino Paradox. I'm Ruben Navarrette here with my friend Arnold Torres. The paradox refers to the idea that Latinos have 54 million people in their population, but not so much political power. What's up with that? How'd that happen? How do we fix it? Arnold, our topic today is an aftereffect, an aftershock of President Trump's decision to rescind DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which allowed up to 800,000 people who had registered for the program to stay in the United States. Though they have no documents, they could have a 2-year work permit, and they were protected from deportation theoretically for 2 years. So our question today is whether or not it really is appropriate and understandable that the desperate would reach for anything, including, as I said in a recent column, for the drowning man who reaches for an anvil. Probably not a good idea. So the topics we typically deal with here, the questions we do on the paradox, are simple. What does this story of the DACA repeal and the original sin of how we got to this point, what's it tell us about the three questions? Who are we, what do we want, and what are we doing wrong? Arnold, what does this story tell us about who we are?
Well, we're always many different things, but the first thing we are is a group of people who are desperate, at least the undocumented population, and a political class and political representatives who don't think about that future. The assumption was that Clinton was going to win. There was never any doubt in their minds that this would become permanent, et cetera, et cetera. Where you and I differ is I don't blame those people who are desperate. It's unfortunate that they go into a program like this. But that's what desperation presents. For many people that are desperate, something is better than nothing.
So what I think it says,
I'm not critical of it.
What I think it says about who we are as a people is we're a people who don't like to read the fine print. We sometimes sign contracts that we don't know what we're signing. We talk to lawyers who give us bad advice, or if they give us advice, we don't listen. We are human beings in the sense that we see things that aren't there sometimes. And here is something that I think the right wing really shares in equal measure to the left wing. It's clear in listening to DACA over the last few days, the debate over DACA over the last few days. We tend to sort of repeat these talking points that are given to us by our own side without really understanding if they're true or thinking critically. There's a tremendous amount of ignorance in America about DACA. Half of the ignorance is on the right, the other half is on the left. Nobody knows about this program, how it works, and both sides have made it out to be something it isn't. The next question is, what do we want?
I think we want some stability and some clarity about the doctrine of fairness in American society. I think that's a very reasonable thing to expect and to want. I think we also want to have the situation described accurately, as opposed to, as you said, both sides describing them kind of whatever is politically convenient for both sides. There's no doubt that politics is playing a role here. But what we want is that clarity, that consistency of fairness and of recognition that people do things out of desperation for survival. That is not something that you turn around and put in the category of criminal. And that is a major confrontation and a difference. And we want to have that to be changed and be more accurate.
I think we want, here's the slam on the right wing and the conservatives, I think we want people to mean what they say. And when conservatives say that they want people to follow the rules, well, there were 800,000 people who followed the rules that were laid out for them. Obama and his Department of Homeland Security laid out a set of rules. By the way, this is the same President Obama and his Department of Homeland Security that deported 3 million people, split up hundreds of thousands of families, lied about it, claimed they were all criminals, trying to blame the Republicans for it. This is the worst administration as far as immigration goes in the history of this country. So just having said that up front. They trusted these people. They trusted these people more than they should have. And they laid out the rules, and they followed the rules. They said you have to register, you have to get fingerprinted, you have to get photographed, you have to give us your mom and dad's address. They did all that. And now the conservatives and the Republicans want to change the language and say, oh, no, we're not for people following the rules anymore. So let me get this straight. You want them to follow the rules, but when they do, you punish them for it. So I think we want people to be true to their word. Last question. What in the world are we doing wrong? What does the aftershock of the DACA repeal tell us about what we Latinos are doing wrong?
We don't look beyond the immediate situation. That's our political class. And when our political class doesn't do that, and our advocacy class does not look beyond that, then what flows from that is going to always be very, very problematic for the people that are depending on that political class to have that vision, to have that ability to see things down the road. And this is a very serious problem that cuts across everything. Is the inability of our political class to be creative, for our political class to actually see beyond just the limitations and the ideology of the moment, and be able to go beyond that. And this is going to be manifested more than anything else in the legislation that will be considered for trying to correct the issue legislatively through Congress. It's going to be fascinating to see what our advocates and our elected officials, especially the Democrats, are going to be proposing.
Yeah.
And I would say to you at this time, I would not expect great vision from these people, because these are the same people that have given us what we've been getting for the last 8 years.
I think what we do wrong, and I think to your point, what we're likely to get in 6 months is President Trump took this bomb and threw it over to Congress. In 6 months, they're going to take the bomb and throw it back to the White House because nobody wants it to go off on their watch.
Yeah.
But politicians are afraid to pass the DREAM Act in both parties, and they're afraid to pass immigration reform. What we're doing wrong, I think, is, and let me just give you a personal story very quickly. We have a family member who is a DACA recipient. He was one of the first DACA recipients in the state of Arizona. His father so much wanted to believe that the country had finally embraced his son that he basically said, that DACA was a sign that the country would finally accepted his son as a full-fledged member of society. That turned out not to be true, because this was always a political scheme. It was more of a trap than anything else, from my point of view. And now, lo and behold, Donald Trump has the home addresses and names of 800,000 people. And a lot of us are nervous about that. So I think what we do wrong is we tend to oversell things. We tend to overbuy things. We tend to let what we want to be true, we convince ourselves that that is true. And that whole line about this DACA was somehow the warm embrace of the United States of America around these kids, that's fiction. That's a fairy tale. Where did that come from? It came from our heart, but not from our head. So that's what we do wrong. I'm Ruben Navarrette. This has been my friend Arnold, Torres, and I, and this is the Latino Paradox. Thank you for following us. We look forward next week to our live event in Fresno, California, where we're doing this on stage, and we'll be doing more of those around the country. Thanks until next time.